Hello, listeners. Thank you for checking out today's episode of Our Yard Podcast. This is episode 22, and today we're going to be talking about our favorite albums that came out in the year of our Lord 1995. The year before we were born, we were -1. And let's get straight into it.
Let's do it.
Fuck yeah. And I think we're both going to start off on this one. The band you just heard is actually one of our favorite albums of 1995. It's a little German band called Rudy's Gherkin. You call them funk metal, alt metal, whatever you really want to call it. I would call it more funk metal, especially on like the probably over half the album. The bass is very, very, very prominent. And yeah, these guys are, we're not trying to sound like hipsters, but they like, I can pretty much promise you, we know every monthly listener that listens to them because they got two, and I think we're both of them. Just to be completely honest.
That's somebody else. I don't even have Spotify, so
Well, I don't. Well, someone found them then.
it's probably Tackett.
Yeah, probably so. Shout out Tackett.
Old P-Tack.
Old P-Tack.
But yeah, that's the album of the year right there. I mean, you can go ahead and spoil it.
Pretty much.
Like Rudy's Gherkin, the album is Rent Your Suicide. Everybody needs to listen to it. Like, these guys, like, they just need to blow up. Like, all of a sudden, like, get 200,000 monthly listeners, and then everybody's like, and then they just start getting paychecks from freaking. They just start getting royalties from Rudy's Gherkin. They're like, what the fuck is this? And we're just like, you're welcome.
That's right. We're gonna be like, I don't know if y'all ever heard of a folk singer from Detroit named Rodriguez, but he had a less than stellar career in the United States, and he hung up his guitar there for a good 30 years up until this bunch of kids in South Africa, because he got real big in South Africa and Australia, and he wound up getting, there was just this massive resurgence of fans being like, who the fuck is this? This is really good. And all of a sudden, he was just like, "Why am I getting these checks in the mail?" And they wound up finding him in Detroit, and they're like, "Are you Rodriguez?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Dude, you're our hero." And he was like, "I don't even know who you are." And that was pretty much the situation. And then before he passed away, he wound up having a really big resurgence in his career, and he was touring. And even if we can achieve half of that with Rudy's Gherkin, I would call it a success.
Oh yeah, something. When like they deserve it all.
They really do.
Like the whole album is perfect. I mean, just top from
There's not a bad song on it at all.
from the title
It really
track,
isn't.
Suicide, to the ending, to the closeout track, Mayday. It's just perfect.
If you aren't familiar, Mayday is what we use for our outro every single time. And more often than not, we use Man of Pain as our intro. Today we used, was that Thank Pink? Yeah,
Yep.
Thank Pink. And you can find this album on YouTube, Spotify. It's pretty much on every streaming platform. I don't know who put it on the streaming services, but you're the real MVP.
Oh yeah. So, you want to start this off?
Oh, yeah.
You want me to do it?
That's all good. I'll go ahead and start. A little bit different from Rudy's Gherkin, which to us is probably our personal favorite album, or one of, at the very least, that came out in the year 1995. And to kind of start it off, kind of tiptoe into what 1995 was offering people, I'm going to go into the Wu-Tang lyrical specialist, Jizz's 1995 album, and one of the best hip-hop albums ever made, Liquid Swords. If you haven't heard this album, I highly recommend it. If I'm not mistaken, it's pretty much almost fully produced by RZA, which, I mean, him and Jizza are cousins, so I guess you'll have that. But The album itself starts off with the song "Liquid Swords," and like Wu Tang, they a lot of the music that all the Wu Tang members did, there was a lot of skit like audio clips, and like you'd have stuff from like old martial arts movies and stuff like that, and this whole album is just littered with it. But beyond that, it's littered with some of the best production, if not the best production of 1995, in my opinion. One of the two best produced albums. But Liquid Swords, amazing start to an album. Duel of the Iron Mike with ODB, Master Killer, and Inspector Deck. Fun fact on this album, pretty much everybody that has a feature is pretty much a part of Wu Tang Clan. So this is almost like another Wu Tang album, just a lot of focus on Jizza himself. Duel of the Iron Mike, fantastic song. My favorite song from the album, Living in the World Today, is track 3. Um, it's partially written by Method Man as well. Um, Gold is the 4th song on the album. Again, one of my favorite beats on the album. Goes into Cold World directly after that, featuring Inspector Deck and Life, who I think is the only person that isn't directly involved with the Wu Tang Clan on this album. Number 6, I would say the weakest song on the album, and that's only because it's so short, is called Labels. And going over the halfway point of the album, one of the more iconic songs on this album, Fourth Chamber, featuring Ghostface, Killah Priest, and RZA. And right after that goes into the one and only song he had Method Man on, Shadowboxing, which is another fantastic, just ass beater of a song. Then it goes into number 9, Hell's Wind Staff / Killer Hills 10304. And it just, again, there ain't a bad song on this album. And the production, the snap of the snare, um, the string samples, the guitar, the bass samples. Just RZA is an insane producer. He really was ahead of the curve when it came to like how to make a beat and what can I make a beat out of, and he just it was amazing. Then it goes into another one of my favorite tracks on the album, track 10, Investigative Reports, featuring You God, Raekwon, and Ghostface Killah, all of the Wu Tang Clan. And right after that, the last 2 songs on the album, track 11, Swordsman, 3-minute, 21-second long banger, and I Got You Back, another 5-minute song to close the album, and another one of my favorite songs on the album as well. There is not a bad song on this album. Like I said, Labels is really the only one that comes off as weak to me, and it's because it's the only song on the album that's less than 3 minutes long. Other than that, everybody will find something on this album that they will fuck with quite a bit. I would say this is probably, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. And going back to the Rudy's Gherkin album, it goes without saying it's a 10 out of 10. Um, I think Harley will back me up on that as well.
Oh, 100%.
But yeah, but Liquid Swords, one of the most iconic album covers in of itself. It was recorded in RZA's basement, and yeah, it's one of the most substantial lyrical journeys in hip hop history. And don't just take it from me, go check it out. Jizza spelled GZA if you aren't familiar. And with that said, we're going to go into Harley's first standalone album.
All right. My first pick is going to be, it's an album that kickstarted a career that nobody thought was even possible. It is the first Foo Fighters album. It's self-titled Foo Fighters. Brother, this for people I guess that don't know the backstory, obviously Dave Grohl was in Nirvana. He was he was a drummer, and of course, like he was famous, I guess, to an extent, just being the drummer. But I say just being the drummer, but behind like Kurt Cobain, who was arguably one of the biggest celebrities in the world at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dave, he was famous or whatever to an extent, but it was like after Nirvana, after Kurt died, you know, they're like, what are we going to do? Nothing happened. And obviously they weren't going to continue Nirvana. And, like Dave said, he went like 6, 8 months without even playing music. Pretty much the rest of '94 without touching anything. And then he said he just, started playing around with some stuff. And it was just an experiment album. Like, it wasn't supposed to be anything serious, just something to like. He
Yeah.
had a few songs. He's like, hell, I just, went into his friend's studio, played everything, just recorded all, like produced everything, like recorded all the guitars, bass, vocals, you know, drums, obviously, like everything. And and then it just, pretty much gave him his second leg of his career, like on accident. Like it just blew up. And then, of course, it was obviously it was a successful album. I think it's really more successful now than, like looking back at it, than maybe it was at that exact moment. Because like their second album was when it really, like, that's when they went full on mainstream, where
Oh yeah.
everybody knew who they were. But we'll get to that in '97, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, this first Foo Fighters album, man, what an album! And just like it's really good, man. Like, but it's more. I think it's just for me. I had to put it up here, like I do, and I love the Foo Fighters. It's not. I wouldn't necessarily say it's my favorite Foo Fighters album. By far, my favorite is Wasting Light, and obviously, I believe that Foo Fighters just kept getting better and better throughout the years. But I mean, the album's great, but it's so iconic. It's kind of hard to leave off, a top five album from '95, just from like, the retrospect. It's like just how much of impact it really had, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like opens up with "This Is a Call," you know, which is it was a single, big hit. "I'll Stick Around" and "Big Me." The first three songs are the biggest songs on the album. But I mean, after that, like the rest of the album is great, man. Like "Alone" plus "Easy Target," "Good Grief," "Floaty," "Winnie Benny," "Oh George," "For All the Cows." Either that, "For All the Cows" is like he just wrote it. Just I don't like Dave. He's pretty much just having fun with it. And like it when they first started touring and stuff, everybody just drunk, like they just loved that song for some reason. Like they just loved "For All the Cows." And like "Ecstatic" may be my favorite off the set, like, out of the hits, because "Big Me's" my favorite song without a doubt. Like it's just such a catchy song, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's just a good feeling song. But "Ecstatic" is a favorite. It's probably a close second. "Watershed" and then "Exhausted." I mean, like I said, it's a great album. I'm sure most of y'all have heard it. So most people, if you listen to our podcast, I'm sure y'all know. Sure, you guys are Foo Fighters fans, so there's that. Like, I don't have to explain, be like, oh yeah, listen to them or find out. No, like I'm sure you know who they are. So, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's my first pick. I just couldn't leave it off this list. Best albums of '95. My favorite albums of '95.
Oh yeah. And to be completely honest, I know you mentioned this, but one thing I would like to add on that is that Dave did everything. He played, like, I know you went into it, but it's just like as good of an album as it is, it's insane to think that it was just one person that did that.
One
Like he
dude.
did every instrument. Like And then, the color and the shapes when he actually started like forming the band. But um, my next album for 1995, this is a bit of an oddball pick, one of the two oddball picks I've got. And I feel like this band is a bit slept on, especially considering this album went triple platinum. And a lot of people probably didn't even know that. And I'm talking about the Presidents of the United States of America's debut album. And most people know them as the band that does Peaches or Lump. And both those songs are from this album. But Kitty is how the song starts off. It's one of the four original hits on the album. They do have a cover of Kick Out the Jams from the 60s and 70s band MC5. That's a little bit later on into the album, and it's not even a minute and a half long. But Kitty is definitely a weird ass song, but it's fun. Feather Pluckin' is the second track on the album. It's one of the more slept on songs on the album. I like it quite a bit. Then it goes into one of the biggest hits they ever made, Lump. And if you don't know that song, it's the She's Lump, She's Lump, She's Lump, She's in my head. And interesting thing. Interesting thing about this band, they don't have regular instruments. Their singer has a two-string bass guitar, which is essentially a guitar with bass strings, and their guitarist has a bass with guitar strings on it, and their drummer plays the no-string drums. Is how the like liner notes on the album itself says. But right after Lump, it goes into Stranger, which is another really good song. Boll Weevil, which is almost like it goes like in and out of like sounding like an old honky tonk, kind of like somewhere between like bluegrass and grunge. It is very strange combination of a song, but I enjoy it quite a bit. Then it goes into arguably the biggest hit they ever made with Peaches. And right after that, it goes into my mom's favorite song by him, Dune Buggy, Little Blue Dune Buggy in the Sand. Um, Another absolute banger of a song, and it's just got this real deep, dark sound, like in the actual instruments themselves, and such a lighthearted song that it's a very nice little dichotomy that they're working on there. Right after that, it goes into Wake Up, which is probably my personal favorite song on the album. And it was a bonus track on the European Yellow Vinyl LP, which is odd for a bonus track to be right smack dab in the middle of an album, but this is the Presidents of the United States of America we're talking about, so there's nothing's going to be fucking normal with them. Track 9, we're going into We Are Not Going to Make It, which is a very funny song about them just basically say, we suck, there's better bands that write better songs that actually have talent, we're not going to make it. And of course, that was a lie considering this album is triple platinum. Right after that goes into, like I previously stated, the Kick Out the Jams cover from MC5, and even it being the shortest song on the album, not even being a full minute and a half long, it's a wild ride, all things considered. Then it goes into Body, which is a fun little song. I enjoy Body quite a bit. Um, and right after Body, it goes into Back Porch, which is another like real country kind of feeling song. They're like genre fluid would be a good way to call them, because they don't really stick to one specific sound, but when you hear it, you know it's them. Kind of like Primus in that regard. And this album reminds me a lot of Primus, and with Primus being my favorite band, that's probably why I like it so much. But after Back Porch, it goes into Candy, which is a very very sexual song in all consideration. I'm pretty sure it's either about drugs or sex. I like it's kind of hard to tell with them, but one of the few features on this album is actually Soundgarden's guitarist Kim Thayil on Naked and Famous, and absolutely adds a whole nother level to the sound of that song. And a bunch of like the last half, especially on the 10-year special anniversary edition of the album. It comes with the extra tracks Confusion, which is a really fun song, Candy Cigarettes, which I'm about 90% sure is about a blowjob, Wake Up, which is another fantastic song, Carolyn's Booty, which is an absolutely hilarious song. Um,
Another one of my favorite songs on the album, "Fuck California," just because it's hilarious. "Puffy Little Shoes," which is the last song on the album, closes it out, and it's a very wild ride, and it's just it's strange. Like, and I mean that with the utmost respect because I do love this album, but it is a very very weird album. And if you're in the mood for something weird, I recommend it. It's a self-titled debut album, and you won't regret it.
Oh, no. Well, I'm gonna go with my number two pick. Another debut album
Mm.
from what became one of the biggest bands to come out of the '90s. Are you ready for this?
Mm.
Um, it is Deftones Adrenaline.
Ooh.
So backstory on the Deftones. I've been listening to them since I was a little kid. Like I was two, yeah, 2 years old. Like my dad. That's when I first remember seeing the freaking cassette my dad had. He told me the story. He went to Album Alley, a record store in Tupelo that's no longer here. It hasn't been open since 2013. But my dad went there back in the day. It was like '97 because it was right after Around the Fur, right? '98. When did that? Hold up. Yeah, '97. It was right when it came out. My dad went to the store. He's like, "Yeah, let me." He asked my godfather who worked there. He asked him if there's any new music. He's like, "Well, I don't know. You know, this younger girl, she can help you out." And she's like, "What do you listen to?" And my dad's like, "You know, like heavy metal, hard rock shit. You know, like Sabbath, my favorite band." And he'd been listening to Pantera in the '90s at that point, and he liked the whatever Megadeth and stuff like just whatever, just going on telling her what he liked. And she's like, "Well, I think I got a band for you. You might like them." And my dad, the first he bought the new album at the time, which was Around the Fur on cassette, and he put it in. He put it in his truck, and he was taken back. He's like, "Holy shit, I gotta listen to it." Like he said, he went back, like he rode around Tupelo, listened to it, and went back and bought the first album, and then he just burned them out. Like, but this first album, like that's my whole life is like, I remember being a little kid just listening to these albums, like riding around with my dad, and like Bored, man, it just opens up with Bored, which is just a banger. It's just a fucking ass beater, brother. It's just, for people that have heard it, it's like, "I'm so bored." Like, it's just fucking crazy, dude. Like, hearing that shit in '95, you're like, what the fuck? And, like, the album just keeps getting heavier and fucking heavier the more it goes
Mm-hmm.
on. Like, you know, after Bored, you got Minus Blindfold, 1 week, Nosebleed. Boy, howdy.
Whew.
You got Lifter, Root. Root is I know that's one of your favorite songs from there, Trevor. That's a damn.
Mm-hmm.
That song grabs your attention when it comes on.
Oh yeah. It ain't my favorite song on the album. You about to get into that one here shortly.
Oh yeah, but you got 7 Words,
Mm.
which is a single. Birthmark, hell of it. Like the whole album's just fucking. I mean, like before I even get through it, like I just say like I give it a 9 out of 10, dude. Like it's just a banger of an album. Like there's really not a weak spot on it. Like you got Birthmark and then Engine Number 9. Holy fuck.
That's probably my favorite song on the album. Engine Number 9.
Yeah, Engine Number 9. Like it's probably it's my favorite too. Like it's just.
Fucking
Whew,
intense. Like
yeah, it's very intense. I was gonna say there's a lot happening with that song, but it's so fucking good. Like Engine Number 9, best song on there. And then you got Viral. I guess it's or Fire. I don't know. I guess it's Viral.
Maybe it's for real. I'm not sure.
Maybe For Real with an I. I don't know. And then you got Fist to close out the album. What the fuck? Like like the whole album, it's just fucking awesome. You know, like if you're into that, you know, if you're into the heavy music, you know, like really that's how it's just heavy metal. Like, and it was like I guess early phase of new metal, like coming through that album, which is kind of hard to ignore. Like what they were doing something different for damn sure with this, and they just honestly they just kept getting better. Like the next two albums, I don't. I say I don't know, man. Hell, the Deftones just fucking rock, man. Like I could tell you a lot about like they just hell their albums just keep getting better and better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's about all you can say about them. But yeah, yeah, great album. Like I said, 9 out of 10. You know, not a bad song on the album. It keeps you interested the whole way through. You know, just wonderful, truly wonderful. Like there's not enough words I could say good about it. But yeah, that's my second pick in the 1995 albums.
And this with the third pick of the 1995 musical draft, we're gonna go talk about a band that I've already talked about, and you're wondering, oh well, I haven't heard of them. Yeah, well, let me tell you something. You think you haven't heard this band?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of you lying to me because yes, you have heard it. It's goddamn Collective Soul's biggest album they ever put out. It's the some people call it the Blue Album. It's their self-titled, just Collective Soul, and outside of the biggest hit they ever made, this is by far the biggest album they ever put out, and in my opinion, probably the best one they put out. Starts off with Simple, all the songs written by the singer Ed Roland, and he really gets into his bag, letting that gravelly raspiness come out in his voice, and you can tell that just immediately from the start. And they
That's
kind of do
underrated
like if
song.
you're yeah,
I
Simple is
just
a
have, I
fantastic
just have
song,
to,
hell of a way
yeah,
to
I just
open
have
an
to say
album.
that.
No, it's a great album. Um, and just to go back and kind of talk about, I never did rank what I thought the President's United States album was. I would probably give it an 8.5 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10 at the lowest. But I'll give you my Collective Soul one here at the end. After Simple, it goes into a song simply called Untitled, and another banger, absolute banger of a song. And we usually do the 3 song runs on this album. This album actually has a 5 song run that is just insane, and they're all hits. You know, so I'm not going to go just super deep into them. The World I Know, one of the best songs they ever made. Um, Collect Collective Soul has this thing where like all of their hits are usually their best songs. And the reason I say that is because, like, not to sound like a hipster, but like we're usually people that like we appreciate the deep cuts a lot more than the ones that like made it into the mainstream. But with Collective Soul, it's usually the exact opposite. Their deep cuts are really, really good. Don't get me wrong, but their hits are just out of this world. And the world I know, it's very soft, very heartfelt song, kind of sad. But right after that goes into Smashing Young Man, which is another fantastic song and more of a medium pace, very hook laden song. And right after that, it goes into, I would say, the second biggest hit they ever made, December. And another fantastically put together song. Um, right after that, it goes into probably my favorite song on the album, Where the River Flows, which is
Yeah. No.
by Collective Soul standards, it's an ass beater. But, you know,
it's I wouldn't say it's heavy, but it's not heavy. It's hard rock, But I'd highly recommend that song. Then it goes into another one of my favorite songs on the album, Jail, which is the fifth and final single from this album. And right after that, it goes into She Gathers Rain, which is just,
Oh, I like that one.
that's a lovely song. It
I
really
love
is. Right after She Gathers Rain, it goes into When the Water Falls. And there, I know I say this a lot, and I don't want y'all thinking it's a cop out, but there ain't a bad song on this album. But the last three on the album, Collection of Goods, Bleed, Reunion. That's probably my personal favorite 3 song run on the album, and just an absolute killer way to kill an album, to end an album. And I would say by far this was the best album they ever put out. Ed Roland himself, as well as many other people, will probably say that this album, like if you're going into Collective Soul and you listen to Hence Allegations and Things Left Unsaid, and then you expect it and then you expect the Blue album to sound like the first album, I'm sorry, because it's damn near 2 different bands. It really is. And I would say this is by far the best album they ever put out. This was the start of them becoming one of the biggest bands of the 90s. 3 number 1 hits from the album, and just absolute banger of an album. But Bleed is, if you're going to find a song from this album that you probably haven't heard, I recommend the opening track, Simple, or She Gathers Rain. Either one of those two, and I promise you won't be disappointed. I would give this album a very, very solid 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, man. It really is a great album. Like outside of the hits, it really does carry. Like it doesn't really fall off at
Mm.
all. But also, I do see what you're talking about. Like their hits really are. I don't know. Like their hits are just fucking great. It's kind of like but when I was talking about Bush's first album when we were
Mm-hmm.
doing '94. It's not saying the rest of the album's the slouch. It's like the whole thing's good, but them like the hits have not faltered over the years. Like they're still, but like everybody still listens to them. So like they've stood the test of time for sure.
Yep.
But with that being said, brother, I'm gonna have to do this to you. My third pick. My third pick in the 1995 draft is Alice in Chains' self-titled album, most people know it, the Three-Legged Dog album. Um, at this point, me talking about music. Yeah, yeah. So like at this point in this podcast, as far along as we are, 22 episodes. Yeah, I'm an Alice in Chains dick rider. I don't know what to fucking tell you, brother.
You better quit.
I mean, my second favorite band for a reason. I'm gonna pick all their albums every year they come out. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this album, and to me, it slept on. I'm not gonna bullshit. And I know it had success, but like, it's slept on compared to Facelift and Dirt, obviously, which they had massive hits. So I understand, but this damn. But this album, man, it's just it is so it's just perfect. Like to me, it's just a great album. Like opens up with Grind. What a fucking song. And like this album to me is just real. It's real fucking nasty. Like it just has a dirty sound to it, like the whole album, like the recording process on. I don't know. It's something fierce. Like you have grind, and then you go to brush away, which is oh my god, what a song. Like it just blows. Like and then my favorite song off the album is Sludge Factory.
Best song
Well,
they ever made.
fuck yeah, fuck. I don't know it. I say that, but I don't know. Damn, I don't know. I love this whole album, man. It's really hard to tell you exactly who my favorite, but but Sludge Factory, man, what a freaking song, dude! It is so awesome. It's like about 7 minutes long. It's just, I don't know, man. It's like the whole lyrical content, the message is just something like it's powerful. Just reading the lyrics and like hearing the guitar. I don't know. It's so. I don't. I've never heard anything about it, but if I had to take a guess, I would say this song probably took them the longest to record. Just like I just feel like they put a lot into it, and to get it just right. And if that's the case, they did it perfect because it's awesome. So, um, after that, you got the big, like probably the biggest song from there, Heaven. But well, I don't know. You got two big hits off there, or three, but I'd say Heaven Beside You, arguably that or Again are probably the biggest songs. Um, Heaven Beside You is slow acoustic song. It's just great. It sounds like it probably could have been on SAP. Honestly, I love
Oh
it,
yeah.
man. Like Heaven Beside You is wonderful. It's one of those, it's one of those songs like it's a hit that just doesn't get old. Like it doesn't burn out. Head Creeps, a fucking dark song, very powerful, wonderful song. Like this album, like the lyrical content is just the messages on it, man, are just it's it's a lot, honestly. But like it can resonate with you in any, I feel like it can just resonate with anybody. Like it's so good. Um, and then the second like biggest song Again, which me and Trevor were doing
Mm.
earlier, the Toot Toot, yeah. My dad says it's the only heavy metal song to have Toot Toot in the song, in the lyrics.
Probably so.
Probably. And only Alice in Chains could get away with it, is what Brett says. Shaming You, banger. So this is my problem right here. This might be my favorite. Now, I will say this. I love the live CD of Alice in Chains. It's just like a collective of live songs from like 90 to 96. Um, up until they quit or went on hiatus. My favorite is my favorite is the live version of this song, but it's God AM or God Am, which in the song, you know, it sounds like, he's saying God damn, so go figure. But God Am is such oh man, it's something about it's so catchy, it just hits right, man. Everything about it's just perfect to me. Like that's why I say like it might be the best song on the album. But it's either that or Sludge Factory are the best. So
Godam's a close second for me behind Sludge
yeah.
Factory.
But yeah, Goddamn is awesome. Then you got So Close, great. Nothing song, wonderful. Frogs, a little different, but it's a good song. Um, and then Over Now, which is a great way to just close this album of how it was. It kind of it just works perfectly together. Like Over Now just puts a perfect cap, just puts the perfect bow on it, finishing touches.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, that is my third pick. That's my third album of the year.
And a wonderful album at that. And we're gonna go ahead and get into my fourth favorite album, or the fourth album of 1995, and this will be the last rap album I'm going to be directly talking about for at least this episode, as far as like going deep into it. And a lot of people say this was the best rap album that came out this year outside of Liquid Swords and The Infamous by Mobb Deep. And good lord, if you like East Coast hip hop, hardcore rap, gangster rap, like this is one of like just like where it all led to. It's just like the cream rises to the top, and this album is what you get from that. And it's littered with you know legendary New York rappers all over it. People from Wu Tang, Nas is on there. Damn Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest. Big Noid is on there quite a bit as well. But the album starts off with the start of your ending, 41st side, and amazing way to start an album. Um, fully produced by, I believe, Havoc Havoc and Prodigy, because they both made the beats, they both rap on them, and rest in peace to Prodigy. Havoc is the one that's making more of the iconic beats, respectfully. Especially like the biggest hit on this album, if not one of the biggest rap songs of all time, that almost closes the album out, but we will get into that. It goes into a little skit called The Infamous Prelude, and it's a fun little skit. He's just sitting there. He's like, "I'll beat your ass," like the whole time. So that's a fun one. Survival of the Fittest, one of my favorite songs on the album, as well as one of the singles released from the album. Um, there, like, again, like, even compared to Liquid Swords, there's absolutely no bad production on this. It's nothing less than stellar all the way throughout. Goes into Eye for a Eye, Your Beef Is Mine's, featuring Nas and Raekwon from the Wu Tang Clan. And Nas just, I don't think Nas has ever spit a bad verse in his life, honestly. But yeah, this is one of my favorite songs from the album. It's a little lengthy, but I mean, when you have like the cypher style songs that don't really have much of a hook, kind of like how these guys are, then it's just going to be rapping back and forth, and boy, they are fucking rapping on it. Then it goes into the next skit on the album, which is Just Step, and again, it's just another fun little kind of almost like an intro to Give Up the Goods, Just Step, featuring Big Noid, which is one of the three features he's on this album. And this is one of the few songs on the album that wasn't fully produced by Mobb Deep themselves. It was produced by The Abstract, and also known as Q-Tip from, you know, a Tribe Called Quest. So right after that, it goes into Temperatures Rising with a lovely song feature from Crystal Johnson. Goes Up North Trip, which is basically a lot of this album is just basically, just street life incarnate. And I think Up North Trip is one of the better examples of that on this album. Then it goes into probably my personal favorite song on the album, Trife Life, which is it's one of the longer songs on the album at 5+ minutes, but it, like, every song they have that's 5+ minutes, you'll forget that it's 5 minutes. It'll feel like 60 seconds has come and gone, and then next thing you know, it goes into QU, hectic, and you're just like, oh, okay. But QU is a another fantastic song as well. Again, fully produced by Mobb Deep, as well as Up North Trip, Trife Life as well. Right Back at You, featuring Ghostface Killer, Raekwon, and Big Noid again, as well as Raekwon again. And just amazing song. Ghostface and Raekwon have always had a really good chemistry with each other on songs, and this is one of my favorite examples of them rapping together. Then it goes into the third and final skit on the album, The Grave Prelude, which leads into Cradle to the Grave, which again just absolutely like violent beats. The production on this album is just violent. It makes you want to go outside and beat the shit out of a midget. Like I don't really know how else to describe it. It's just like I need to punch something kind of beats. And but like in a good way. Kind of like how Limp Bizkit or bands like that, they just kind of like they dig into that primal part of your brain and then, you're just next thing you know, you're moshing. But it goes into one of the sadder songs on the album, Drink Away the Pain Situations, featuring Q-Tip. And Q-Tip also helped produce this song as well. And then it goes into arguably the biggest hit they ever made and one of the biggest rap songs of the 90s, Shook Ones Part 2. And y'all already know what that is. There ain't no such things as halfway crooks. Um, and just beautifully done song. Havoc's production on this is second to none. And a lot of people, and rightfully so too, it might not be my opinion, but a lot of people say that objectively this is one of the three best beats ever made. And not that like I'm going to name the other two because usually it's different for everybody, but Shook Ones Part 2 is usually always in like the best beat of all time discussion. And once you hear this song, you'll see why. Then it goes into the last song on the album and a fantastic closer, the longest song on the album at 20 seconds shy of 6 minutes, Party Over, featuring Big Noid again. And just good Lord. I'd have to give this album, honestly, dude, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Like, this is one of the this is one of the three albums that came out this year for me that was a 10 out of 10. And going back into the Collective Soul album I was talking about earlier, I'd probably give it, what I say, 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, easy 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Well, boy, howdy. We'll probably have a good bit of honorable mentions.
Oh, yeah.
I have to go. I couldn't leave this off. This is one of, and I talked about him in 91 from the second album. This is their third album and their final album. The third and final album with the original singer and lineup. Man, it's an ass beat. Like it is. It's just heavy metal. Like obviously it's not full on hardcore ass beating shit, but it's like heavy metal, dude. It's man, it throws down. Like the whole album to me, man. It doesn't skip a beat. It doesn't lose traction. It's Subhuman Race by Skid Row. Like, and I'm very vocal about how I feel about the first Skid Row album. I do not enjoy it. Never have. Probably never will. I've tried to go back and listen to it like every few years, and it's the same. I like about two songs, and that's about as far as I can get. But Slave to the Grind is an awesome album. I talked about it. Subhuman Race, dude, they just got heavier from Slave to the Grind, and it's fucking insane, man. The whole it opens up with My Enemy. Fucking what a way to open an album. Great album opener. Goes into two ass beaters back to back, Fire Sign and Bonehead, which are just full on, like they're full throttle, just to the wall. And then they hit my favorite song off the album, Beat Yourself Blind. which I mean, I don't know, like beat yourself blind, man. Like it beats your ass. Like it is just fucking awesome. Like especially the lot. Like honestly, there's the 40 seasons of Skid Row that they released. Um, like a greatest hits compilation in '98. Um, there's a live version. I think they're playing like the Hammersmith Odeon over there in England. There's a live version of "Beat Yourself Blind," which is the song itself is awesome, but that live performance is 10 times better. Like the energy they have on it, and goddamn Sebastian Bach's fucking dude, his voice is so fucking awesome. Like I don't care, people can say I know how a lot of people view Sebastian Bach, but that motherfucker, like especially them, like Slave to the Grind and this album Subhuman Race, like he was on some shit, dude. He was doing some of the best singing of his life. It's just phenomenal. Once again, not enough words to describe just how awesome it is and how much I love it. And then he goes into Eileen, which is more of a slower. It's it's not a slow song. It's just a slower, heavier song, I guess. It's a little bit of a break because the first four are just wide open. Kind of changes the pace a little bit. Then it goes to Remains to Be Seen, which is it kind of goes, it's in the same realm as like My Enemy. The title track Subhuman Race, which is a great song. And like it's I don't know, man, like the lyrics on here, like the songwriting was all like it's really great. Really great. Like it's just all around, man, like just a well done album, well done song. Like Subhuman Race is fucking awesome. And like I said, Sebastian Bach, his voice just insane. Damn. I say Beat Yourself Blind is my fuck. Because then you go into another, which is I burnt that shit out with Trevor back in the day. Um, into another that yeah, I'm gonna say that's my favorite Skid Row song. Like, man, it's a little bit, it's a slower song. Kind of a change of pace from the rest of the album. Like Eileen, a little bit cleaner than Eileen though. Like the guitars don't have as much distortion. But man, it's an awesome song. Face Against My Soul, Medicine Jar, and then I guess the ballad on the album would be Breaking Down, which kind of, to me, it's kind of the only glimpse of a ballad, like of what they started out as, I guess. Before they just went full on metal, they were like glam or whatever the fuck that was you want to call it. Like Breaking Down is a real mellow song, like love song, ballad, shit like that. But it's I love it. I could see if somebody was like, yeah, it's a little, too on brand for that bullshit of the glam shit, but hair metal. But it's a great song. I love Breaking Down. And then it ends on a fucking awesome song, Iron Wheel. I don't know, like like I said, there's not enough words to describe exactly how I feel about this. I just love it. Like Skid Row, Subhuman Race. Like if you're a Skid Row fan, you know Sebastian Bach. Like I haven't really, be honest with you, I've listened to a little bit with the 17 other singers they've had, and it's all right. But it's just, and I know they'll never. It kind of breaks my heart that they'll never do or ever get back together again. You know, because I would love nothing more to see Skid Row live one more time. Because Sebastian Bach can still sing just as good now as he ever has. Like, I just love to see him. I'd love to see them if they could ever just. And the crazy thing is, if Skid Row just if they ever put their differences aside, like talked it out, whatever the problem was, which the problem was Sebastian Bach. And he said that in the interview, he's like, I was a fucking dickhead, And he's like, I talked to him like shit, like, because the last thing he ever said was like, he left a message on Rachel Bolan, the bass player's messaging machine, and talking to him like shit. And then he called him and said, "You're out of the band, fuck you." And that was it. And, yeah, they, but like I said, I mean, Sebastian Bach's even been like, "Yeah, I fucked up," like he's like, "Hell, those dudes were my brothers for a long time, and hell, I just shit on them pretty much, essentially." Like, which I don't know if they'll ever take that into consideration or even talk to them, or I just wish they would, because even if like, and I know like Snakes talked about, he's like, "I don't give a fuck about the money." Obviously they've done well off their lives, but like from that aspect though, if Skid Row actually got back together for one tour of them together, brother, that place would they would sell out arenas around the fucking US, like probably overseas too. Like without a doubt, they would sell out every fucking city. Like they wouldn't be playing in fucking bars and shit, like whatever they're doing. Like, like these, you know, festivals like opening up in the daytime, like they would be headlining arena shit. Like it would be insane. But don't know if it'll ever happen. Probably won't. Um, I wish it would. I love them. Yeah, that's it. I kind of went on a little tangent there at the end. Just shit that always sits in my back of my mind about Skid Row. But yeah, Subhuman Race, the third album, last album was with Sebastian Bach. Definitely check it out if you're into metal or if you're into Skid Row. Give it a listen. It's a great fucking album. I'll give it a fuck it. Hell with them. I'll give it a 10 out of 10. It's badass.
That's a fair point.
So, and we'll kick it to Trevor. And I will say my last album though, I will be dick riding hard, and I just have to give y'all a little warning about that because it's one of the best. Besides Rudy's Gherkin, is the best album to come out of '95 in my opinion. So, just a little warning for y'all.
Oh yeah.
Shit's gonna get real.
Well, I'm sure that's all right. I know this is probably outside of Rudy's Gherkin, of course. This is my favorite album, personally, from 1995. And I'll even go out on a limb and say this is one of, if not the best album these guys ever made. And it is my favorite band, so there's a lot of bias that goes into that. But I know this is also Harley's favorite album as well. We're talking
Oh
about Tales from the Punch Bowl. And fun fact about this album, this was the last album with Ten Alexander before he rejoined Primus 7 years later, and again in 2013 after Green Naugahyde, because they had Jay Lane on that album. But this was also the first album they ever recorded at Les Claypool's home studio in Sebastopol, California, Rancho Relaxo, as he dubbed it. But brother, you talk about a perfect album. This is some of the best drum work. I think no, I'm not gonna go out. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This is the best drum work Tim Alexander ever did throughout the album. Some of the best
Big
guitar
sweet.
work, some of the best bass work from Les, but just like for sure, written in stone, this is the best drumming from Tim Alexander I think he ever did. Personally, it starts off with Professor Nutbutter's House of Treats, which is by far the longest song on the album, and maybe the weirdest. I don't know. There's always going to be a challenge as to what is the weirdest song on what album by them, and everybody will probably say something different, but this shit sounds like you're going through a carnival in hell. um Then it goes into Harley's favorite Primus song as a whole, Mrs. Blaylene,
Banger.
and absolute banger of a song. Heavy as hell for what it is. Um, you can definitely.
Mrs. Blaylene, she's a sweet lady too. Fucking awesome.
But then, and fantastic bass work. Tim's killing it on the drums. Lur's doing his thing on the guitar. Just 10 of 10 song. Wynonna's Big Brown Beaver comes in at track 3, and one of the biggest hits they ever made, if not the biggest hit. I'd say, like, commercially speaking, this was their highest charting album. It made it all the way up to number 8 on the Billboard Top 200. Which, I mean, you think about that in context of what Primus is now, that's pretty damn insane to think about. It was 125 on the year-end chart, and that's probably going to be the only time I ever bring up Primus and, like, charting. But right after Wynonna's Big Brown Beaver, it goes into one of the best drum pieces I've ever heard in my life, and the second single from the album, Southbound Pachyderm. I guess technically the third, considering Miss Blaylane's also a hit, or it's also a single as well. Um, Southbound Pachyderm is
Ooh.
one of the first songs I ever tried to learn by Primus on bass. The first one actually being American Life from Sailing the Seas of Cheese. But fantastic. Like, the bass takes a step back to Tim's drumming towards the end of the song, and just absolutely insane drumming. If you're not familiar, basically Tim Alexander, in my opinion, and please take this with a grain of salt. He's like Danny Carey, but better, is how I usually describe him to people. I mean, you got to be an insane drummer to be able to follow what Les is doing on the bass, but he really, like, this is like one of the few songs where I would say Tim actually, like, fully outshines Les. And right after that, it goes into Space Farm, which is kind of almost like a interlude kind of song. I mean, there's, it's odd. There's a bunch of animal noises going on. Of course, you get that with Primus. And then, speaking of drum work on this album, it goes straight into Year of the Parrot, which is a song about plagiarism, of all things. And one of the best drum lines Tim Alexander ever made. Very prominent with the double bass. And Les just has this very, like, it's almost like you're just like, imagine like a fat dude rolling down a hill. That's what his bass sounds like in this song, is the best way I know how to describe it. Right after that, it goes into what I think personally is probably the weirdest fucking song of the album. Hellbound 17 and a half just says theme from, and parentheses. This song is, it's odd. It's almost country esque the way it comes off, like something you'd hear, like, not necessarily like a honky tonk, but like kind of that weird 90s country kind of sound to it. And it's a good song. It's just weird as hell. But again, the double bass from Tim's drums is just absolutely pounding throughout. Then it goes into Glass Sandwich, which is a song about a man that goes to one of those, like, strip shows where you're, like, sitting in a room and, like, there's a stripper on the other side of the glass, and it turns out to be his wife. Um, yeah, funny, very funny song. Dell Davis Tree Farm, which is a very fun song. A lot more fast paced than most of this album is, but it's a pretty self explanatory song as far as the song goes. It's just about a dude named Dell Davis and all his trees on his farm that he cuts and gives to people for Christmas. Deanza Jig, which I think is by far the funniest song on the album, is just Les kind of reminiscing about living in Deanza and Los Abrantes, the San Pablo Bay area there in California, close to San Francisco, and just starts talking about, you know, there's this one girl he knew, and they used to go around the town together, and now she runs the biggest dyke bar in town. That's his words, not mine. But is what it is. Very fun song. Very almost bluegrass in nature. Les is on the double bass, and right after that goes into On the Tweak Again, which I would say is one of the creepier songs on the album. Which, I mean, if you look at the name of the song, it's about somebody being on meth again, and they talk about that quite a bit. Methamphetamine just as a whole, but it's a great song. Right after that, it goes into Over the Electric Grapevine, which is some of probably my favorite bass work of Les on the album itself. Starts off with an insane bass solo on his fretless, and it almost sounds like you're in a Bollywood movie there at the start. And then it goes into this very strange story about two friends on a road trip, just going across the country, and static starts coming through the radio, and one of the dude in the passenger seat, just starts laughing. So they wind up pulling off to they pull off into a store, and he comes back and he can't find his friend, and he turns the radio up, and he hears his friend stuck in the radio, and he starts. His friend's freaking out, like, "Help me out of here! I need to get out!" And then the driver himself starts laughing. So it's very creepy. It's almost like a horror movie made into a song, but absolutely just a ripper of a song. Some of the best bass work Les has ever done. And then it goes into a very short but sweet outro in Captain Shiner, which is just like some "Ahoy, matey!" Like sounds like you're on a pirate ship, and it's very what would the word be? Kind of not odd, but like, I don't know. I'll remember the word. I'm not good at words sometimes, says the rapper. But anyway, 54 minutes and 5 seconds long. Uh, Easy 10 out of 10 album for me. Um, they're more in their prog rock bag in this album. It sounds like they're kind of like, in one hand, really like playing into how big a Rush fans they are, while simultaneously like really setting themselves apart as something that sounds completely different to anything that's ever come out or has come out since. And just, in my opinion, outside of maybe Rudy's Gherkin, the best album that came out in 1995. But anything you want to add on that? Because I know this is your favorite album as well.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite Primus album, without a doubt. It's perfect. I mean, standout tracks. I mean, my favorite is Mrs. Blayling, but the standout track is Southbound Pachyderm, which is my second favorite song off there. Um, Probably top five Primus song, anyways. Oh, dude, Southbound Pachyderm. If you never heard it, just listen to it. Like, it's so
Literally,
fun.
stop the podcast and just go listen to it, and don't
Yeah,
look up the music video because it's not
no,
the full version of the song.
listen that.
And it's not like no disrespect, like it's a cool music video, but if you really want to listen to the song, the actual song itself is like 6 minutes 21 seconds long.
Yep.
You want to find that version because
You
you
need
need
all
to
of it.
hear Tim Alexander having a fucking cow at the end of the song.
Yep. So, with that being said, I'm going to it. Like I said,
Yeah.
we talked about Rudy's Gherkin before. That's my favorite album. That's number one. So like, I'm not including it. I'm talking about the best album in 1995. An album I have spent many hours listening to. Couldn't tell you how many hours I've listened to this whole thing top to bottom. It'd probably be embarrassing, honestly. Um, Probably about 70 something hours or 100 hours. Which which doesn't sound like a lot, but the album's 43 minutes long, so it it's kind of a lot. But it is All I Want from Tim McGraw, the third studio album. With It had 4 top 5 songs, 2 number ones. Um, it opens up with 4, like, out of the top 5 songs. like out of the top five songs, it opens up with four of them, which is "All I Want Is a Life," which was "All I Want Is a Life" was it was number 5. Um, "She Never Lets It Go to Her Heart," which is number 1. Shout out, my ex fiance Megan on that one. That was like an inside joke with us with that song. I said that song was about her. And then you have it goes into "Can't Be Really Gone," which was I don't know the chart position. It was like what I don't know, number 2. Yeah, I don't know. It was, and then "Maybe We Should Just Sleep on It," which was number 4. It was a number 4 song. Like, dude, this out like just starting off with them 4 songs. Like, "All I Want Is a Life," I guess, like, is it's just an upbeat country song. It's like you might know, like, yeah, it was a number 5, charting song, but it's probably like the least recognizable out of the hits. Maybe to like just a standard fan, like a casual fan, but it's a like it's a good song. Um, and goes, like I said, goes into "She Never Lets It Go to Her Heart," fucking banger. Everybody, country fan, like everybody knows that. "Can't Be Really Gone," what a slept on song, man. That song will pull you down. It pulls at the old heartstrings. "Maybe We Should Just Sleep on It," one of the catchiest fucking songs of all time. Like, just if you hear it, it just buries into your head. And then my favorite track from the album is number 5. "I Didn't Ask and She Didn't Say," and yes, it is as sad as it sounds. Um, you know, Reminds me of my first ex-wife. Then you got "Renegade," which is it's just the upbeat country song. Like, Tim just talking about, just talking about being, I don't know, just being a renegade like himself. Uh, and I like it. And then "I Like It, I Love It," which is one of his most iconic songs, was
Yeah, I was
obviously
gonna
at
say
number
I
1.
definitely heard that one.
Yeah, everybody's heard that
I
song.
like it. I
I
love it.
love it.
I want
I
some
want some
more.
more of it. I tried so hard. But yeah, it's like, to me, I know it was a hit. Like, everybody fucking loves that. Like, it just blew up, and like it still gets a bunch of radio play. But to me, it's probably the weakest on the album. Truthfully, like, it's not as well written as like the other shit. I don't know. Like, okay, so the last part of this, like the second half of this album, is when it starts getting deep. But like, of course, it starts like the second half would be "I Like It, I Love It," and after that, it's a song called "The Great Divide," which, holy shit, like, what a beautiful, like, great song. All these are wonderfully written songs. "Great Divide" is awesome. It's like talking about a man and a woman, like, having relation issues or whatever, and like kind of just like finding the way, and like it's just you're pretty much getting a divorce. Like, it's just a great divide. Like, it's great. Um, "You Got the Wrong Man." I love, like, I quote that all the time. Like, it's just, "You got the wrong man. It's not me. Another case of mistaken identity. You got the wrong man." And you got "Don't Mention Memphis," which is,
Don't tell that to Kenny.
yeah, "Don't Mention Memphis." What a song! Like, because he's talking about you know, like me, is, third ex-wife is in Memphis, and he's like, "I can't handle this." Um,
Oh,
it is what it is. You can't, don't talk. Like it's pretty good. Like the story is awesome because he's like driving. It's like he's going down the road. Like he's like I'll hitchhike, get picked up by a truck. Like we can talk about anything. Like we'll talk about we'll talk about some football games, newspaper. Like we'll talk about anything. It's like just don't mention Memphis. And then one of the most slept on Tim McGraw songs is When She Wakes Up and Finds Me Gone. Oh boy, yeah. It's really as sad as it sounds. Dude, it is undeniably one of his best songs. It's like Tim had like a lot of his, obviously his hits are awesome, but dude, the shit he had on the album, like the songs on the albums outside the hits were like just as good. Like they held up so well. Excuse me, but like When She Wakes Up and Finds Me Gone, and also I have to shout out. I looked it up. The guitar player was Dan Huff. Shout out Dan Huff because this is probably the best fucking lead guitar solo on a country song. Like this dude loses his ever loving mind, dude. Like he fucking shreds on this. That like it's definitely worth listening to, and it's over 5 minutes. It's over 5 minutes long song, which is kind of crazy for country. And like, dude, the guitar solo is like the last minute and a half or two. Dude, he just loses his shit. Like it's awesome. It's a wonderful. Like it just ends perfectly like that. Um, and then the last song is That's Just Me, which it's just kind of just saying like kind of the same stuff as like the other songs like Renegade and All I Want Is Alive. It's like that's just me, like who I am as a person, all that good shit. Like it's not too in depth of of like story writing, I guess, but it's man, what a song! Like the whole album, dude. I'll tell like the casual country fan, like this is definitely an album I would recommend for somebody look like if you love Tim McGraw or you love like '90s shit, like this is definitely an album to listen to. And like, there's always, of course, out of the top five hits, like you can, latch on to one of those. But like the stuff outside of the hits, like you'll latch on to something. I promise you. Like I said, like my favorite song is I Didn't Ask and She Didn't Say, and then a close second is When She Wakes Up and Finds Me Gone, and that solo by Dan Huff. Like every dude, something like people just need to listen to that. Just go like listen to Tim McGraw. Go listen to Tim McGraw's third album. All
Go
I
listen to
want
it right now.
right now.
But no, that was our main. I think that was our main five from '95. I'm gonna go ahead and go through my shout outs here real quick. These are the songs that I love, these albums that I love, but they weren't um, not as good as the ones I mentioned previously. But maybe you'll find one throughout one of these albums that you'll like even more than the 10 we just went over. Well, technically 11 that we just went over, and I got six here. One I'm going to touch on very, very briefly, but You'd Prefer an Astronaut from Hum. Um, if you're unfamiliar with Hum, they are a post-hardcore shoegaze band. They're a very big inspiration as to why the Deftones sound the way they do. And biggest song they ever made, and the song I would recommend from this album is Stars. It's been featured in a bunch of media before. If you ever played Saints Row 2, it was on the metal station. You know which one I'm talking about. Going into the next one, which is commonly referred to as the Purple Tape from Raekwon the Chef, only built for Cuban links. And again, this album, just like Jizz's and any other solo album from the Wu-Tang Clan members that came out there in that early to mid 90s period, this was recorded in RZA's basement, and it's all on RZA Beats. And The album kind of plays out like a movie, with Raekwon being the star and the guest star being Ghostface Killer and RZA being the director of the movie. But I recommend, I would check out Criminology from this album. It's got a bunch of hits, but I would recommend Criminology. Fantastic album. Um, Arguably the biggest album that came out in 1995. What's the Story? Morning Glory from Oasis. I'm not a huge fan of Oasis, but this album is undeniably good. And obviously, everyone's heard Wonderwall, but if you go even discounting Wonderwall, the hits on this album, some might say, which is probably my favorite, Roll With It, Morning Glory, Don't Look Back in Anger, Champagne Supernova, like every time you look, there's a hit. Like, I don't really know what to tell you. And I guess shout out to Oasis for reforming as well. I think the over under is probably going to be like 2 months. Uh, the the Woman in Me from Shania Twain is, you talk about a song, or you talk about an album full of hits. Fucking Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under? Any Man of Mine. The Woman in Me Needs the Man in You. If You're Not in It for Love, I'm Out of Here. You Win My Love. No One Needs to Know. Home Ain't Where His Heart Is Anymore. God Bless the Child. I think that speaks for itself. Um, the last Wu Tang solo album I'm going to get into from '95 is ODB's Return to the 36 Chambers, the dirty version. Once again, recorded in RZA's basement. That makes sense considering they're cousins as well as being in the same group with each other. And most people know the "Oh baby, I like it," whoa. "Oh baby, I like it," whoa. Shimmy, shimmy, y'all, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. And that's definitely the biggest hit from this album, as well as probably the biggest hit that he ever put out. Fantastic song, fantastic album. And my last, but definitely not least, um, honorable mention of 1995, its title track, including the first use of the term the Dirty South on the track of the same name. We're talking about Soul Food from Goody Mob, which, if you're not familiar, it's where CeeLo Green became famous. And joining him is Big Gip, Cujo, and Timo. Um, Andre 3000 and Big Boy of Outkast are all over this album. And whether it be through production or features, just like this album just screams Atlanta. It just screams Dirty South. And one of the more slept on rap albums of 1995. But with that being said, that's all my honorable mentions. Let's swing it over to Hogmaster.
All right. So honorable mentions. Listen to the album right now. One of the biggest albums of all time. Probably the biggest album. I know you said Oasis, but it don't compare to this. And I know that sounds outrageous until I say what the fucking album is. It is Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill.
Ooh, ooh, boy, you are
Honorable,
not wrong.
honorable mention. I mean, what? Just off the fucking
I mean,
hits
no, I mean,
alone.
but I'd say between that or Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, those three albums are the biggest albums of 1995. But God, I mean, you got a point there. Jagged Little Pill was huge.
Dude, like, okay, just the hits. All I really want, you ought to know, hand in my pocket, you learn, head over feet, ironic. Like, that's all you have to say.
Yeah, no, you got a point there.
But even the rest of the album is good. Like, even the hits, like, I mean, the whole album's wonderful, man. Like, it's like she put her whole, broken heart in that shit. And, like, shout out Dave Collier, aka Uncle Joey from Full House, for breaking her heart and letting her write this fucking masterpiece. Kind of wild that that's how this album came about, though.
If I'm not
Like that's
mistaken,
how that
he
was
she
that.
ain't the only one. She ain't the only woman that made like beautiful art of that dude specifically breaking their heart.
No,
Old Uncle
but
Joey was a heartbreaker.
oh yeah. So I got that, and then I have to shout out. your favorite country artist, Thomas Rhett, his dad, Rhett Akins, with his debut album, A Thousand Memories, brother. This whole out like a country out, dude. It's so good. Like the whole album's great. Like listen to Heart, what they're talking about. Old Dirt Road. I mean, of course, the big ones like people get into, like She Said Yes. Uh, I Break for Burnett's. And then the big hit off the album, I think, was a number one. I'm not 100% sure. I would say it probably was a number one, as big as that song is. Like, still they play it. Is That Ain't My Truck by Red Eight, dude. What a banger of a song! Like that shit was awesome. And my favorite song off the album is the title track, A Thousand Memories. What a wonderful song that is. Like, and I will say that's another song, country song, with a guitar solo is fucking incredible. I don't know what they were doing in '95, but that, like, even if you're just a guitar person, you want to like, it's a great, like, you can listen to that and it's awesome. Um, got that. Um, we also have another country artist that I really like. I got into a big kick on him back in COVID during the pandemic. I got the debut album. Damn, there's a lot of debuts this year, but the debut album from Daryl Singletary, who is a very slept on country artist. Very slept. This dude has an incredible voice. He has a few songs, like he covered a few Keith Whitley songs, brother. Like he did Miami, Miami. It's not on this album, but like he did Miami, Miami. Holy shit. Like if you didn't know, like if you don't listen to Keith's version like once or twice, like, and then listen to it, you'd be like, you would close your eye, like you would think it's fucking Keith Whitley. Daryl Singletary he was an underrated country artist. I loved him. Like he's just awesome. This album, Too Much Fun, was the first track, titled like the first single. Uh, like I mean, the whole album's good, and like he was somebody who liked to shout out his heroes. I guess like he did a good bit of covers on his albums. He did a "Would These Arms Be in Your Way" cover. Um, a lot of stuff, man. Like I'm living up to the low expectations. Like there's a cold spell moving in, dude. There's great songs on this, but the biggest song on the album, his biggest hit, my favorite song of hit. Like even though it's the biggest, I love this song, and it is so messed up because it's "I Let Her Lie," and he's just talking about like I let her lie, like pretty much getting cheated on and letting her do it, like just being a fucking doormat, getting shit on, and then just finally ends up cutting the cord and saying, "Not fuck you, bitch." But like, it's a great dude. It is. But I saw it like the first time I remember hearing that song. It was on an album called like Greatest Love Songs of the '90s. I'm like, brother, that ain't right. Like I listened to it, I'm like, that's not love song. But yeah, Daryl Singletary's debut album, great. Um, like you said, like Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, that's a great album. Um, you know, really, I think that's about it, I guess, for my honorable mentions. I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know. It'll be all right.
Well, it'll be all right. I think anything we missed, our listeners will go ahead and comment that in the section down there below. Just scroll down with your little pud fuckers there, little fud fuckers. Go ahead and don't forget to like,
Whatever makes you
subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let us know what you'd like to do next time. Go ahead and put your cock in a blender. We won't stop you.
Just
But
like E6 said. Mm. But with that being said,
and you have been listening.
that's right. All Yard Podcast. We're heading up out of here. Love you
That's right.
guys. We're going home.